terrible few weeks for politics in general, but for Labour in particular, of course. Gordon Brown and his party have so far taken the biggest hit, it seems, from the scandal over MPs' expenses, and with the public furious, there's widespread talk of complete Labour meltdown. The Prime Minister has promised change, but we haven't heard yet exactly what he means by it, and whether, with his party at historic lows, he really thinks there's time to pull things round. Mr. Brown is with me now. Welcome, Prime Minister. Good morning. You came into power in 1997, and there was enormous hope, the end of sleaze, the end of boom and bust, a new start. And now we're here. Labour Party's never been more unpopular, more disliked. The entire political class, which you head, is despised at the moment. People out there say, yeah, of course, lots of people are responsible for this, but you, Gordon Brown, are also responsible for this.
Well, everybody's got to take responsibility. Look, the first thing we've got to do, before you can talk about anything else, is we've got to clean up the system, we've got to clean it out, we've got to open it up, and we've got to change it for good. So every MP will go through a star chamber, if you like.
Every single Labour MP?
Every MP, not just Labour MPs, will go through a process where the receipts and expenses for the last 4 years will be examined in detail. If there are any transgressions and any repayments or any discipline to be taken, that will happen. And then we will move to a new system, which I've proposed, which removes the power to decide expenses and salaries and pensions from members of Parliament altogether. I want an Act of Parliament, a constitutional reform bill. That bill will include a clause in the bill which sets out the responsibilities, the code of conduct for MPs, and then we will set up an independent external body that will manage these things from now on. There will be no more of the gentleman's club, self-regulation, the closed society. That was the 19th century politics. We need an open, transparent democracy where all these things are above board. And if I may say so, it doesn't just affect the House of Commons, it affects the House of Lords, and it may affect all public institutions that receive taxpayers' money. People want to know that where taxpayers' money is involved, the right decisions are being made, so they've got to be made in an open, transparent and accountable way. That is the clean-up that's got to start immediately.
But you say it was 19th century politics. For 9 years of the 21st century it was going on, and, you know, you were at the top of the system.
And this was historically, as we know, a matter left to the House of Commons. Governments never interfered. They let the House of Commons get on with it.
But you all knew what was going on.
That's what's got to change. To be honest, what I've seen offends my Presbyterian conscience. What I've seen is something that is appalling. I did not expect to see instances where there are clear cases which maybe have to be answered for fraud. And what we've seen means that only the openness that came from the Freedom of Information Act, only that openness is the means by which you can find out what's happening, and then you've got to have proper discipline. I'm appalled, I'm shocked by what happened. Now, most MPs are doing a good job. They're in for public service. They're in for what they can give, not what they can get. But where a few MPs have abused the system, they have got to pay back, and there has got to be punishment and discipline. And I want to prevent that for the future. Well, that's a matter for the police, but the police will look at cases.
David Cameron said he expects them and welcomes them.
Well, of course, because everything's got to be cleaned up. There is no way that we can tell the public that we're leaving things as they are. It's got to be cleaned up. Historically, it was a matter for Parliament itself. Now it's a matter that the whole public demands both government and opposition parties act. As I say, this whole issue of transparency will go not just across the Commons. It will have to affect the House of Lords, and it will have to affect public institutions, including the health service and all sorts of public institutions, including, I suspect, the BBC.
Be that as it may, there isn't at the moment agreement across the parties about what's going to be done.
I think we're getting near to agreement about things that need to be done.
Are you saying that you can make these changes before Parliament breaks in July?
I think we can make these changes over the next few months. My proposal is...
What about keeping Parliament there until they're made?
That's one. We're waiting for the Kelly report. I actually asked, months ago, I asked the Kelly committee to investigate this. Then I tried to propose to the House of Commons, before even the Telegraph started on this, that we have a new system that was a better system. Now we've got to get it right. And so I propose that we put in a constitutional renewal bill, both the responsibilities of MPs, that's a code of conduct, and set up the external, if you like, supervision that is no longer left to MPs to make their own decisions, which was a gentleman's club arrangement, and puts it to an independent commission.
Could you not
and that will be done as we can reach agreement on the details, but we'll have to wait for the Kelly report.
Could you not have external supervision before Parliament breaks in July?
There is external supervision being introduced immediately, because as we review the 4 years of expenses of MPs, it's independent auditors who do that. So we are bringing in people from the National Audit Office, chosen by the National Audit Office, who are independent, who will do it. Look, every step that needs to be taken, surveying the expenses over the last few years, not just allowing a newspaper column, but the whole thing being looked at in detail over 4 years, then creating a new regulation where it cannot be done by MPs alone, and then opening up the other institutions to the transparency, the light of public inquisition. That is the right thing to do.
You're presenting this as if it was something that the government intended to happen and wanted to happen all along. Had it not been for the
constitutional change is what I want to do, yes.
I'll come on to that. But had it not been for the Daily Telegraph and a leak, the public would not have known most of the most embarrassing details which are now tumbling out because it would have been redacted.
They were all going to be published under Freedom of Information
Act. With big black lines through the interesting bits.
Redacted, I think, only, but that remains to be seen. Redacted only where there is personal information about your bank account, your tax number, all these things. If they got into the wrong hands, your private addresses, that was what was to be redacted. I don't know what people tried to redact, but that was the only thing that ought to have been redacted.